I'm the Dean of the Departmental Branch of the Meteorological Service, and today I would like to present you, together with Christian Herold, the EUMeTrain weather briefing for the 14th August 2025. Unfortunately, it was not possible to come together for this appointment, so Christian was or still is online, and I just had to record the presentation a few weeks before this date. So let us have a look for some more information. So as it is a special presentation, we are not synchronous in time for the presentation. I would like to present you some maps from DWD. First of all, seasonal climate predictions, following up some sub-seasonal climate predictions, and at least some special cases from the satellite data, at least. So what we see here are seasonal climate predictions that describe the trends in climate development for the next couple of months. They are closing the gap between sub-seasonal and decadal climate predictions. And as you can see, the dots, a smaller one gives up some information about a prediction skill. The size of the dots shows a skill in the evaluation period between 1991 to 2020. A smaller dot is significantly worse than the observed climate mean. A middle one comparable to the observed climate mean and significantly better than the observed climate mean is a bigger one. The prediction here started on the 1st of July 2025, and the pictures or the graphics were generated on the 7th of July in 2025. So also for the colors, some information. You can see here the colder part, the normal part, and the warmer part, with the percentage that shows how probable will be the category at least, and what kind of category is it for this evaluation period. As you can see here, when we start for the months July to September in 2025, we can see in the eastern parts of Europe there is a clear signal for that period that it is significantly better than the observed climate mean, and it will be warm, at least with a high percentage, as you can see here. This changes to some regions here around in France, more in the northern parts, Germany, France, going to the southern parts of Spain. But what is interesting also here at the coastlines, at the Mediterranean Sea, the coastlines of Spain, and also some parts in the Mediterranean Sea, you can see here a clear signal that it is getting warmer for this period. So the next slide is for the period August to October this year. Here you can see that it is nearly the same in the eastern parts, with a strong warm signal. At least in the northern parts of Europe, it's not so significantly better than the observed climate mean, so more worse, at least in the middle parts here, but going up to the coastlines and to the ocean, you can see that it's better than the observed climate mean. Going then to the western parts of Europe, you can see some smaller regions with comparable signal to the observed climate mean, but in Spain it just vanishes a bit, even for the percentage, so it's not so probably true that it can happen like that. As you can see here at the coast also some kind of hotspot, as we can call it. For the Mediterranean Sea, it just disappears a little bit, but keep in mind we are looking for the period from August to October, and therefore there should be some changes. So we can see here in the Mediterranean Sea that goes more to the eastern part this year. So let's go to the next slide. And now we see September to November. Here we can see that is very interesting. Maybe the autumn will be a little bit warmer. If you can see here, the signal that is very significantly better than the observed climate mean, and it has a strong signal, 100% for a warmer category at least. So the temperature will be warmer at least as we're looking at the temperature. For France, the percentage is not so high as in Germany and Poland, at least, or some eastern parts of Europe, but there is still a signal compared to the season that it will be a little bit warmer. In Spain, the probability is not so high, and the prediction skill also, as you can see, some small dots here, or middle ones, it is significantly worse than the observed climate mean or comparable to this. It seems that we will have between September to November here a warmer area, at least in the western part, and around Italy it's not getting warmer than the normal values we have for this season, at least, but in the eastern parts there is a chance, as we see middle one or big dots at least, with a significantly better than the observed climate mean scale, with a tendency to a warmer condition there, so higher temperatures at least. So let us go to the sub-seasonal climate predictions. Again, the temperature, the colors percentage are the same. And you can see here the sub-seasonal climate predictions. They are describing the trends in climate development for the next few weeks. So the weeks 2, 3, 4, and 5 following from the date when it was calculated. And the prediction started on the 21st of July in 2025, and the map was generated then at the 22nd July of 2025. So if you have a look for these few weeks, starting on the 28th of July then to the 3rd of August, we can see that it could be that we will have a season a little bit more colder than normal, as it is presented here. In the northern parts, it might be normal as well as in the last year. For the western parts or eastern parts of these areas, Eastern Europe, so we can see here in northeastern parts it will be a little bit warmer, or not a little bit, but as you can see here, 100% and significantly better. There's a tendency that it is warmer than normal. So we will just have a look. Only the western parts of Spain seem to be a little bit warmer than normal. Also Portugal, but the Mediterranean Sea at least is as the same condition as every year, more or less, as it will be some, as we can see here, some blue dots. It will be a little bit cooler. Let us go to the week from the 4th August to the 10th August. Here we can see the whole scenery is more or less the same. In the middle part of Germany, it might be a little bit colder than for the mean, for the observed climate mean. This changes a little bit to the western part, west of France, southwestern France, and to Spain, as we can see here that there's a tendency for a little bit more warmer period. The Mediterranean Sea is more or less the climate mean and the observed climate mean conditions. There are some parts with tendencies that it's getting colder. For the eastern parts of Europe, we can see here that the tendency seems to be, as for some parts of the western parts of the European coast here, that there are some tendencies that it's getting hotter there than it is normal for this period. So let us go on from the 11th of August to the 17th of August. More or less we can see that there are some tendencies with a lower percentage that it will be for the eastern parts, Poland, a little bit colder than in the normal climate mean. For the eastern parts of Europe, we can see that it will be a little bit warmer, at least. There is not such a high percentage, at least, that it will be really strong, but significantly it is well worse than the observed climate mean here in the northern parts. As we can see, for Germany, we have middle one dots here with a signal for a warmer tendency, even for France and well to the southern parts for Spain, at least. Also the Mediterranean Sea for this area, for the western parts, has signal for some warming tendencies, as the rest of the Mediterranean Sea will be in the same condition as it is normal for this period. So, and then the 18th of August to the 24th of August, we can see in the eastern parts here that the conditions are more or less normal, like it is for this time period. For the middle of Europe up to the western parts, there's a tendency that it is warmer than in the climate mean, even in the Mediterranean Sea, so that it might be from the middle of August to the end of August that it will be a little bit warmer, at least for a lot of European parts. So let us have a look for the precipitation. Here we can see the condition if they are dry, normal, or wet, at least. It is the same as for the temperature, so only have a look here for the conditions and the percentage, as it is brown, gray, and blue, at least blue if it is well in a wet condition. We can see here for the months, for the seasonal climate prediction, July to September, that at least it is dry in the middle of Europe, some parts of Eastern Europe, but then it still moves up to some tendency that it's getting a little bit more wet there, and therefore we will have maybe some precipitation during these months, still maybe to the autumn, I think. For the Mediterranean Sea, it's more or less in the climate mean, observed climate mean, with some tendencies around Italy that there will be some precipitation, at least. Then have a look for the period from August to October. Here we can see that also for the northern parts of Europe, there is a tendency that there will be some precipitations, but for some mid-eastern parts as well as for the middle part of Europe and the western parts, it's more drier than the observed climate mean, at least. Maybe some areas here of precipitation, the southern parts of Italy, can appear. So, and at least the period September to November, as we can see, it might be the same picture, at least, that we have here some precipitation in the northern parts, northeastern parts. Here is more or less an equilibrium, so we have some normal conditions here in a small zone, but for the southern parts it still is very dry. There might be some spots with some precipitation for these months, that it is getting wet, at least. And now let us go into the sub-seasonal climate predictions. As for the temperature, but here for dry, normal, and wet conditions, the period from 28th of July to the 3rd of August, we can see here some drier condition for this week, for example. Then there must be some rain events here for the middle part of Europe, from north to south at least. France and Spain will have dry conditions during that period. Then from the 4th to the 10th of August, we can see here for the eastern parts of Europe we will have some precipitation, more or less, as there are also the climate condition as well as observed for the climate mean. But then to the regions of Middle Europe, up to the southwestern parts, we can see it is dry, or dry as always as it is presented in the observed climate mean. So we will go on from the 11th of August to the 17th of August. More or less the same picture. We can see here that the northern or northeastern parts show up that there might be some precipitations, and the western parts and middle regions of Europe will be drier than the observed climate mean, and the conditions in the Mediterranean Sea will be as normal, so as the observed climate mean is, at least. So, and then for the period from the 18th August to the 24th August, we have more or less the same picture. There is a small tendency for the eastern parts here, we can see, of Europe, and northern parts of Europe with some precipitation, but then it is more or less in a dry condition. It might be also that the observed climate mean goes in the same tendency as it is presented here around the Mediterranean Sea from August the 18th to August the 24th. And as we go on, for the sea surface temperature, we have here a special map also. More or less it is the same from cold, normal to warm, with the same colors here, and the significance, or especially the prediction skill, by the size of the dots. And here you can see the sea surface temperature as well will be high, and there will be warm temperatures, as we can say warm, there will be high temperatures at least. Some parts with normal conditions, as they are normal for this time period from July to September. This will be also in some parts at the border of Europe, at the border coastline here, or in that regions, that will be with a tendency warmer than normal, at least for these months. If you go on, we can see here more or less the same conditions, but with a tendency that it is more from August to October to the eastern parts with warmer tendencies, and at the coastlines here at the border you can see the areas with a warmer signal, at least. Then we will go to September, period September to November, and there's also a tendency that we will have a higher probability for a tendency also significantly better than the observed climate mean in the prediction skill for all the seas around and the ocean here, or the coast at least. So this was a presentation about some probabilities, what will happen in the next months or what will happen in the next weeks around our weather briefing months. And now we have here some special cases about some special events. So I would like to present you here some examples of some nice events. In the weather briefings before, In the last few months, we also had these events. There's always some kind of dust in the atmosphere. Here's a special event on July the 15th, as it was possible to see it by Copernicus Sentinel-3 here visualized. There was some dust drifting northwards across western Mediterranean Sea. And well, there is just an overview of some different images and some product at least. We have here the dust RGB from MTG. As you can see here in the purple-like or magenta colored areas, there's always some dust in the atmosphere, and I think for this time, for the 15th at 9:30 UTC, it was quite difficult, but you can see here at the border, the northwestern parts of Africa, Portugal and Spain, and even the area that was shown by Sentinel-3, that it is not easy to see here at that area. So if you go on in time, it is more or less the same. You can see here some structures magenta-like, but the main spots are more or less around the areas, the coastline, the channel here, the channel of Gibraltar, the passage there, and the northwestern parts of the coast going up to the Atlantic Ocean here in that area. So not so easy to see in the dust RGB, and just try to find out some other examples. And if you go here to EUMeTrain, the website for 18 Zulu, on that date you can see there's a clear plume at the MTG geocolor. So this is very interesting, as it is better seen, but you can also see here all the areas that were presented magenta-like in the colors before, in the maps before, in that color. And there's also something of dust around that area, as it was mentioned before. But I think the best product here must be the MTG geocolor to visualize it better, at least. So then, let us go. So here we have an animation to find out if there's some movement of the dust plume, starting very early in the morning. You can see that the whole area here around is magenta colored. Well, it still vanishes a little bit at the coast of Portugal, but as you can see here, there are always these colors, or these magenta-like colors. It is quite difficult to see how the structure here moves in this channel, in the dust RGB. So it might be better to use the MTG geocolor or the RGB, or even the Sentinel-3 picture, at least to visualize it better where the dust plume is. This indicates a lot of dust around this area, even above the continent, if there is some reflection of aerosols at least. And another example for that period are the wildfires. Here's one example of Mentrida in Spain for the 17th of July. And what was interesting is the wind field was also responsible, as fire workers did the work, and luckily there were some news about the fire ended up at some lines here, as you can see, and the area was under control. Unfortunately, a few hours or a few days later, it must be like the wind rekindled the fire again, and therefore there were also some interesting information on the satellite pictures for this. This was done by Sentinel-2, this picture here, and now we have here an animation. As you can see, MTG Europe Central in the near 2.2, and you can see here in the red circles how the fires are moving on the 19th of July during the day. It was a large area here. Madrid is marked by the cross. You can see it clearly in this channel when the fires appear. Just have a look for it. There it is, and it goes on. So if you use a true color RGB from MTG, you can also see in the red circle here how the smoke is going up in the atmosphere. And well, here, if you know where the fire is, for sure these are not normal clouds, as it is smoke. So, and on the last slide here, we can see in South Spain as well as in Portugal, if it is possible, the smaller spots indicating fires here. It is very fast, I have to say, but there were some different kind of sources, as you can see now in a bit there, around Spain. The conditions are very, very dry and hot, and there were a lot of fires. More or less, this is typically for this month, this period, this season at least. And well, this also appears in the other areas of the Mediterranean Sea, at least of the countries, as it is very dry and hot. This image is an animation done by MTG Europe Central near 2.2. At least this was the best visualization that was possible to indicate the fires here. So, as I mentioned, this was the last slide. I hope you've got a good overview about what will happen in July, or what happened in July and will happen in August at least. Thank you very much for watching. This was a small insight into the possible development of the weather in Europe. Some classic examples should show the current conditions in July and August. So see you at the next EUMeTrain weather briefing. Best regards.
So in my part of the presentation, I will be giving you a brief review of the August and an outlook for the coming period. And the most striking event in August you see already on this satellite picture. It was unusual summer storm, the storm Flores. Here you can see this in the Airmass RGB. It was on the 4th of August, and here you see this well-developed storm here. And usually you see such satellite pictures in wintertime, but this is very unusual picture for summer. And here you see this red color here over the center of the low. So there is very dry stratospheric air is descending in this region. You have here a dry intrusion, a very strong dry intrusion, and we analyzed this storm in our surface analysis, and you see a typical structure of a Shapiro-Kaiser cyclone. You can see here you have this typical frontal fracture in this region. And to remember, the Shapiro-Kaiser model is here. You have it starts with a frontal wave, and then the cold front is developing perpendicular to the warm front, and then you get this frontal fracture. And our cyclone here was something between stage 3 and stage 4. And you see this also here in the conveyor belt model. Here's the warm conveyor belt, which you can see here. And it's splitting up to an eastern part and an northern part, which goes to the west. And here at the bottom, the cold conveyor belt is coming around. It is here. And here you have the strongest gusts. In some Shapiro-Kaiser cyclones, you may have a so-called stink jet, which is descending from the middle troposphere, but the satellite picture here doesn't or didn't indicate that there was a stink jet. You see this cyclone very good in the so-called cloud type RGB. You have this red areas here, which indicates in cirrus clouds, and this yellow shading here is are very thick cirrus clouds in the warm conveyor belt. They are wrapping around here, and here this dry stratospheric air is descending and evaporates the clouds, and you see that they are getting progressively lower, and here you have some ice, and then you have only here in this area low clouds, and even here there's a cloud-free area. And the strongest winds are here at the southwestern flank of this, and this is typical for such a Shapiro-Kaiser cyclone. Here are the measured wind gusts, and they are up to 120 kilometers per hour, and these high values are on the mountains. And such wind speeds are very unusual for the summertime, and they cause severe damage, especially because the trees were still in leaf. As a result, there were power outages, railroads were blocked, and there was a lot of damage. And the UK Met Office issued an amber warning for parts of Scotland. You can see the storm, very impressive. A few hours later, it was at 17 UTC. It's a little bit more occluded. You see here this occlusion is wrapping here around, and in the true color RGB, this was even the EUMeTrain picture of the week. And what you can also see is here this thin band here. This is the cold front here. You can see it clearly, and here you have some kind of frontal frag already, and yeah, it's very impressive. So, and this cyclone changes the circulation pattern over Europe. When we remember, the weather in July was dominated by a cutoff low over Central Europe and a high over Scandinavia. It was very hot, unusually warm over Scandinavia, and rather cold over Central Europe. And after this storm, there was a stronger westerly flow with a high pressure system over south of Europe and a strong westerly flow in the north. And the next player, which led to the extreme heat waves over southern Europe, southern and central Europe, and Western Europe, what we have nowadays, this was this post-tropical storm Dexter here, what you can see in this image. And here you can see also a lot of smoke which was involved into the storm. It's from Canadian wildfires. You can also see smoke here over parts of Europe, and large parts of Europe, Central Europe and Southern Europe, are nearly cloud-free, which is caused by the subsidence under these high-pressure systems. And there were already very high temperatures over the southern parts of Germany. And let's go to the current situation. What happened next? At first, I want to show this slide. Here you can, in this cloud type RGB, you can see the smoke very good here. It is in low altitude, so that's in green. And there are also some smoke here over Europe. What you can see at this small streaks here. You can see this very well. And let's have a look at the current situation, what happened with Dexter. And this here, this Airmass RGB this here of the former storm Dexter, or rather its remnants. It is connected with a upper level trough, what you can see in the 500 hectopascal geopotential, and ahead of this trough, you see a ridge has built up, which attracted warm air from the seed dome over southern Europe into the northwest and into the west and central parts of Europe. And here you can see also upper level low over the Mediterranean Sea. These clouds here belong to a fringed cold front, which is moving into France. And when we have a look at the true color RGB, you can see that there was already some convection starting. There was a stronger capping inversion. So that the convection starts at first at the mountain regions, and is also here a convergence zone visible with here rather small cumulus towers. But in this region, at the afternoon, there will be convective initiation. We will see this later, but at first we want to have a look at the 850 hectopascal temperature, which is overlaid on the satellite picture, and you see that the 20 degrees isotherm extended very far to the north over parts of France and into southern Germany. There's also 25 degree isotherm over France present, and this leads to very high temperatures, even 40 degrees over parts of Spain, Portugal, France, Italy, and the Balkans. And it's unusual for August, such high temperatures. You have this not every year. Let's come back to the convection. At 15 UTC, it starts here at the Pyrenees and at this convergence zone. You already see some towering cumulus, some smaller overshooting tops, and I have plotted soundings, the model sounding from our Icon T2 model from this region, and you see a lot of cape. This is the most unstable cape, and here the mean layer cape. And you see that this convection is very high based. You have here such an inverted V structure, and it means the boundary layer is very, very deep and dry. And when you have a stronger precipitation falling in this dry boundary layer, there's a high potential of severe downbursts. So the wind or the gusts may be here the main threat. There's a very low shear environment, and the storms are slowly moving. So heavy precipitation will be a threat too. And you can also see this in the true color RGB, and I overlaid lightning density from our new lightning imager. And you can see that this here in this convergence zone, especially the storm has a very high lightning intensity. So the storm may be intensifying in the next hours. And so this did. And it's at around 18 UTC. You have here some clustering storms. You get a larger mesoscale convective systems with a lot of towers here, some overshooting tops, and you even see gravity waves in here. So that indicates that these storms are rather intense. So let's go further. What will happen the next days? This is the forecast for Friday. And here you see the 500 hectopascal geopotential and the surface pressure. And at this map, you see the 850 hectopascal temperature and the geopotential. And what you see is that there's a trough is coming over northern parts of Europe with the cold front, which you can see here. And this cold front and this trough are weakening this heat dome and push it a little bit more further to the east. There aren't so high 850 hectopascal temperatures anymore. But at the southwestern parts of Europe, you see that there is another strong advection of very hot air. It comes from this upper level low over the Atlantic, and so the heat wave will remain in this area. So that's very bad for the wildfires. And that's the situation at the weekend. What you can see here, that's you've got a blocking situation ahead of this new trough here. And here's a high pressure system over the North Sea. And this heat wave still remains. At the other side, here's an intensifying trough over eastern parts of Europe, which leads to cooling here. And so in the southeastern parts of Europe, you get moderate temperatures. And let's have a look at the forecast for the next week. You see that this blocking is weakening during the first part of the week. And there are some troughs coming into western parts of Europe. Here, the heat still remains, but in general, you see cooler weather conditions over Europe. And at last, when we have a look at the IFS extended range forecast for the next week, we see that that's the mean value of the temperature and the anomaly of this temperature of the climate, and it's the geopotential anomaly. And you see that here this warm or hot weather over Western and Central Europe might be back, but I don't think we will see such high temperatures over 40 degrees anymore. But you can also see that we have here this high latitude blocking. It's a really strong tendency to high latitude blocking, and we had this circulation pattern in this year often before. So we will get a trough here with colder conditions over northwestern Europe, and we will see what develop out of this. So that was my part of the talk, and I thank you for the attention.